The UK started its phased opening post the pandemic after more than a year of lockdown. Latest figures are now showing that COVID-19 has widened the gap of unemployment between ethnic groups. That is something we need to talk about. Follow my discussion on this. I am Kareesha, your human rights barrister on Kareesha Law. We talk about immigration, human rights, but also inequalities that exist and affect society as a whole. Young black people have been the hardest hit by unemployment during the pandemic, new research indicates. Over the past year, the UK jobless rate for young black people rose by more than 35%. That compared with a rate of 24% for young people of Asian descent and a rate of 13% for young white people. The figures as they appear, 4% of white people were unemployed in 2019 compared with 7% of people from all other ethnic groups combined. Black and Bangladeshi and Pakistani people had the highest unemployment rate out of all ethnic groups. The white other ethnic group had the lowest unemployment rate out of all ethnic groups. At the height of the pandemic last year, between the second and third quarters of 2020, the unemployment rate among 18 and 24-year-olds rose from 11% to 13%. And by the end of last year, unemployment among young black people or graduates had risen to 34% from 22% for the previous year. So what I am saying is the pandemic not only created mental problems, but black people in particular found themselves hit the most with unemployment. It's almost as if young black people were bearing the brunt of the pandemic's economic crisis. One of the issues identified was that young minority ethnic workers were already disproportionately represented and in terms of employment and less likely to be in secure employment before the pandemic. They'd be working on 0-hour contract or have fixed term contracts, or they'd be working cash in hand with little security. As we know, these jobs received less security or protection from schemes like the furlough scheme, and this may have contributed to the figures rising as fast as they have been. And further figures show that black and ethnic minority staff were made redundant at a rate of 26 times higher than white workers during the period of the national lockdowns. These figures are available on the Office of National Statistics website. More people from what we call BAME backgrounds, although I know we're not really fond of this term, are already working or work in precarious and jobs or are poorly paid in what they do. But it is coming even more to the surface now due to COVID. It is revealing deeper inequalities in society, such as structural racism. The chairman of the TUC's anti-racist task force said, and I quote, during previous economic turndowns, BAME workers have been first out and last in, unquote. Now, what can be done? We could start by holding companies accountable for publishing pay gaps between ethnic minorities. I cannot believe I am saying this, but in 2021, but pay discrimination based on race is illegal, yet it continues in the UK. Currently, the law requires companies to publish their data on gender gap pay, but this could be extended to include race as well. There should also be a ban, or if not, a review of some clauses used in zero-hour contracts, and more protection should be afforded to people on zero-hour contracts. There are legislations that protect workers or employees against race discrimination. I'm sure you're aware of that, but as any practitioner will tell you, it is very difficult to prove that you have not been offered the job after the interview based on your race, that you have not been promoted based on the colour of your skin or on your race. And I will not go into the law, but there can be what we call direct discrimination or indirect discrimination. Now, you do not need to be a lawyer to know that proving direct discrimination can be very hard. Few employers, or any employer at all, would be prepared to admit discrimination. That's common sense. And those who are aware of the law may have taken steps to appear as if they're acting lawfully. So even if we have a framework, it is not as simple as that. But I will say this: if you believe you're being discriminated at work due to your race, or you have been made redundant due to COVID-19, and you want to know where you stand, speak to a lawyer or contact myself or speak to the Citizens Advice Bureau, who may be able to assist. I will end by saying this, and this is important. This is not about pitting white against black or Asians. It is about dealing with inequalities in our society. We now have clear and compelling evidence to show these inequalities exist. There is a need for concerted action to eradicate prejudice and discrimination. I'm sure you'll all agree with me. And before we dismiss this as a not my problem situation, do you want to be part of a society where clear discrimination is taking place? I will urge the powers that be and the government to urgently look at the labour market and address the issue head on. Thank you for your support.